All right, welcome to Get on the Ark. My name is Darren Conrad, and we are here with Charlie Bogaczyk,
Bogaczyk.
Bogaczyk,
Bogaczyk.
Bogaczyk,
Yes, sir.
Bogaczyk, Bogaczyk. Man, but anyway, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and it's really cool how we met. Like we didn't know each other, and I
hmm
started this podcast, and I had a woman reach out to me. Her name's Kendra D. Carroll,
hmm
and we talked, and she's like, "You need to meet Charlie." And I said, "All
hmm
right, great." So I've heard a little bit about your story, and I know what you're doing. A little bit with you wrote a book, and now you're in the
hmm
process of writing your second book,
Yep.
and it's really exciting what God's doing for you. And but welcome to the show, and I'd love to hear your story. So
All righty. Well, thank you. Good to be
yeah,
here. This is the first podcast I've ever done, so bear with me.
sure.
But yeah, so my story, I guess, kind of begins. Well, I got married in 1994. 12 years into my marriage, I found out that I had a brain tumor in the third ventricle of my brain. It was a colloid cyst, and in order to have it removed, I had to go to Pittsburgh, PA, that hospital, which was 4.5 hours away from where I was living. Um, but at any rate, to speed things up a little bit, basically the surgery went well. They got the tumor out, and I started, you know, continuing with my life. I started noticing, some differences with myself, and I I would get down on myself. Due to the surgery, I have issues with short-term memory on occasion, and also slight tremors, and I get headaches. But I'm living, and I praise God for that every day. But at any rate, through the years after my surgery, I became less confident in myself, and I became more aware of my issues. Way more than anybody else was, for sure. I was my own worst critic, but it got bad, and I got into some alcohol pretty bad, and then I became an alcoholic. Um, in 2015, I ended up getting divorced due to that alcoholism, in part, and mostly, I should say. But so due to that, I entered into the rooms of AA and into recovery, and I struggled with it for a long time. So I was divorced in 2015. Spent about 3 years in and out of rehabs and halfway houses and recovery houses. And the last place that well, actually, my sober date is June 15th, 2018. So I finally got it right, 3 years afterwards. But then I went to Allentown, PA. After that, after my sober date, and Allentown ended up being the place where I got sober. Where I stayed sober, I should say. Because I'd failed like 7 times or something like that, and Allentown finally worked for me. And I got there, and I went there with a new mindset too. It was basically, I got to do this because I'm tired. You know, Going back out and doing it all over again. In and out of the rehabs, constantly drinking. My health wasn't the greatest. Wasn't helping my health. It was in the short term because it would numb me. And so I basically talked myself into drinking. I was like, this is what you have to do to not have pain. And it was so ridiculous. They say alcoholism and addiction is insanity. And that's exactly what it is, because I kept doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's actually the definition of insanity, according to Albert Einstein. So, so I did that many times. And finally, I got it right. And that was in Allentown. I ended up um, in 2020. I was living in Allentown, and my best friend, who I basically called my brother. He's actually my brother-in-law. He was married to my sister, but we were best friends for 25 years before he got married to my sister. But at any rate, he ended up getting cancer in late 2018, I think it was, and it was rough for me because I was in Allentown. He was back home, and I couldn't come back here for him. But and through all that, I was able to come back a few times and visit him, here and there, and unfortunately, I watched him struggle, and I watched my sister struggle to try to take care of me. And then finally, in January of 2020, it finally got the best of it, and the cancer took his life. And so it was after that. It was like literally days after that. I was staying at my sister's house in Blossburg, which was my hometown, central Pennsylvania. And I was staying there, and my mother and my brother had actually died when I was young as well. My mother died in '99, and my brother died in '96, and they were buried in a cemetery right there in Blossburg. So I told my sister, I said, I'm going to walk to the cemetery, and I said, I just need to get out. I need to get some peace, because I was just so miserable and hurt, from just losing my friend. So I did that. I went out and I took a walk up to the cemetery, which was maybe a mile and a half walk. But anyway, during the walk, I knew that I was not alone. I'll just say it that way. And it was just like, somebody was with me. I knew God was with me on that walk, because I kept feeling something different. And I got to the cemetery, and there was snow on the ground. It was February. He died January 29th. I think this was February 5th when I took that walk. So I get up to the cemetery, and then, that presence that you can feel when the Lord is with you, it hit me big time when I was up there next to my mom and my brother's graves, and it was like the strangest experience I've ever had, but the most amazing and greatest feeling I've ever felt at the same time. So I could feel that inside of me. So I ended up walking back to the house after staying there for a little bit. And it's funny. As I'm walking back, it's at a cemetery, right? So the church is just down the road a little bit further. There's a Catholic church where I grew up and went to as a kid. And as I'm going by, the chimes go off, the bell on top of the church, and it starts. It was in its basic ring, and I got my phone up just in time because it was just a beautiful moment. I was coming back from that. I was feeling so spirit filled, and I got my phone up to record it. And at the end of the chime that it was ringing out, it ended on 5 equally parted chimes, same note. And it hit me that, later on in the walk, I should say, because I kept on walking. I kept thinking about that 5, that number 5. And so when I got back to the house, I talked to my sister. I told her, I said, I'm feeling something. I said, I don't know what this is. And she had written before. She had done some poems for a little while and stuff. Never really had anything published, but, she was really good at it. And I said, I want to tell you my story, and I'd like you to maybe write on it, knowing that she had done this stuff before. And she told me, she says, this is your experience. She says, you write it. And it hit me hard. So, but at any rate, I went into the bedroom and I sat down on the bed. And this is actually the same electric bed that my brother-in-law had slept in when he was there, that he was using. They brought a hospital bed in for him. And it was in that same bed. So I'm sitting in that bed, and I just, grabbed my phone and I started jotting things down in it. And the whole time, these words ended up being a poem, basically a poem writing. And the words were just flowing from my heart to my fingers, I guess you could say. I just knew, that somebody was with me. And literally, in tears the whole time while I'm writing this, and it just flowed. And I knew it wasn't me. And, it's not like I didn't know God, but because of my lifestyle, I kind of strayed away, And it was in that moment, in those moments, as I'm writing that poem, that I knew, that things were going to be okay, and that there's somebody out there watching over me, and not only that, but I also knew that God was talking to me, that he was showing me, what he wanted me to do, what my purpose was. And it was I never knew I could write. Honest to God, I never knew until that day. I knew that I had some skills, just from some emails and stuff like that, but I never put it to use until that day. And so so I came out of that room a different person, I guess you could say. And I've been writing ever since. But that experience was just like crazy. So going back to the 5 chimes on the bell, remember when I was walking back from the cemetery?
Right.
So the name of this poem, I ended up titling "In as 3 and Out as 5," meaning that the 3 was me, and I explained in the poem about my friend that just passed away, and that him and God were walking with me.
Wow.
And yeah, and I got up to the, of course, the 5 comes in when I get up to the gravestones with my mom and my brother.
Wow.
So walking out, sorry,
No, that's great.
walking out, there were 5 of us, and there were 5 chimes on that bell, at the end of that song. So it was a pretty surreal moment, in my life. I don't think I've ever had an experience like that ever. So it was that knowing feeling inside that, that God's talking to me, that He's showing me that I need to just, open my ears and open my hands and let Him in, let Him take my life, all of it, take all of this hurt and all this pain, and
Amen.
just guide me. And so, ever since then, I've been writing. So it's been a struggle, but it's a good struggle. A struggle in the aspect of basically trying to keep focused, on Him. I won't say it comes easy, because it doesn't always come easy.
Right.
We live in a crowded world, and our minds can just get distracted at the drop of a hat. So, but it's good. I can tell you that. And it's just neat when I get into it, when I get into a rhythm, how those feelings just come back to me, like I was in that bed where my brother-in-law had been, and in that room, just feeling God for the first time as far as my purpose goes.
Now, was this the what inspired your first book?
Yes. Yep.
And what is the title of your first book?
Inspired by Angels, which
Inspired by Angels.
Yep. Which
Wow,
is
that makes sense.
that's exactly it. Yeah. And at the end of the poem, when the very first time that I wrote, at the end of that poem, I didn't feel comfortable just signing it with my name. So that's what came to my head in that moment. At the bottom, I put "Inspired by Angels." And then at that moment, and I didn't know I was going to write a book at that time, I just wrote a poem and I put "Inspired by Angels" on it. But that became the name of the book, was "Inspired by Angels." So it ended up being at the bottom of all of my writings that are going to be in this book. So yeah, so it was pretty interesting, and I know that we are not alone. God's here with us, and He uses moments in our lives to capture us, to bring us closer to Him, and to see our calling. I listened to Kendra's show a few weeks ago when you had done that, and she's a great one, to spark that, to and she helped me. She helped me to see my talent, I guess, so to speak. But not only that, but to know that God is with me as well. She's a constant reminder for me, and she's just been so good to be by my side. And that's what her life is all about. I think her book is Stepping Into Your Calling. So, but yeah, she helped me out. And the funny thing about that is that she's a women's coach, women's outreach coach, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
And she made room for me. She just kind of felt that, and we've talked about it. It was odd for her at first that I was a guy and she was reaching out and trying to help me.
Yeah.
But she took me on. So but yeah, so that's kind of my story as far as up to the first book, anyway.
So you grew up Catholic.
I grew up Catholic. When I was married in '94, we kind of fell away from the Catholic Church. My dad was an alcoholic as well, so we didn't I want to say my teenage years, we kind of just stopped going to church regularly. And so I fell away from the Catholic religion. And then I got married in 94. And my wife, or my, I guess before I got married, I started going to church with her, but she was attending a Lutheran church and I became Lutheran in 93, and then got married in the Lutheran church in 94. So technically I am still Lutheran, but I do
So,
visit.
so when you had this experience with the angels
Mhm.
and the bell going off 5 times representing
Mhm.
the three and the Lord.
Right.
So after that time, is that really when your relationship, I guess, with God, is that when that really started? Like when you really started having a personal relationship?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and
I would,
so,
I
well,
guess not so much my relationship with God. That's when it kind of bloomed, I should say, because God has always been in my life. He's always been a part of me. I've known he was there, but
right.
if we don't, pay attention to him, then we kind of lose part of that. And that's kind of where I was. I knew he was there, but I didn't want him so close to me. I
Right.
just wanted him there to keep me out of trouble.
Yeah.
Basically, that was the alcoholic mindset. I know you're there, God, but let me have some fun. And it was just the wrong way to go about it. And
Yeah.
he never left me during all that. I knew he was there, and I leaned on him many times through that when I tried to quit drinking myself, and I couldn't. And every time in and out of rehabs and halfway houses. So it's basically all that experience up until I got to Allentown and finally got sober and got some time under my belt when I was actually, my heart was opened up more to receive God, I guess you could say. So I spent 4 years in Allentown sober before I came home. So
Well, so,
yeah,
so you've been sober or living a sober life for 6 years now. Is that right?
it will be June 15th. Yes. Yep.
6 years.
Yep.
So tell us about that journey. Like how is because I know it's a journey. I'm
Hmm.
sober as well, and I know that it's not just a on and
Oh
off,
yeah.
and you're transformed. There's a
Right.
process. So tell us about that journey and how it's changed you and how it's brought you
Okay.
closer to God. And yeah, go ahead.
The sobriety, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a complete turnaround, basically, as far as a life step goes. It's an about face turn. I was definitely going in the wrong direction, but once I got sober in 2018, and then I won't say right away, like I was saying, I had to go through some stuff, and I'll be honest with you, I had really no cravings for alcohol this time around, that last time around, because that was when I put it in God's hands. You know,
Mhm.
So that part was okay, but it was still me struggling in a city, the third largest city in Pennsylvania, when I came from a rural town, up in north central Pennsylvania with a population of like 2,000.
All right.
So it was during all that struggle of knowing, that I'm going to come home eventually, but I got to get better, down there. So finally, once I could do that, and I could finally see God a little bit more clear in the future, and not only in the future, but right there with me as well. But I guess what do I want to say? It's kind of like the window got bigger of him the closer I got to home. So it was a journey. It was interesting, but I'm living so much better right now. I have two daughters, and they both have children. I have a grandson, and I also have a granddaughter who were born 1 month apart. And they're both 2 years old right now. So,
Wow.
yep.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's a journey for sure, but it's a fun one.
Well, I love your journey. You've got something you're doing in Pennsylvania right now, and
Hmm.
there's 209 historic covered bridges or just covered bridges.
Yeah, they're all historic. Yeah, they're all basically historical landmarks at this point. Most of them, I think, are. But yeah, so that was another God experience, another spirit-driven experience. So after I moved back here, that first year, it was 2022 in the summer,
Mhm.
and I I was visiting a lot of the outdoors. I found that, if I went to the outdoors, I was inspired even more. I could feel God even more when I was outside. So I was hitting hiking trails and, different hiking trails here and there. And I was doing a lot outside, and I couldn't figure out one day. I woke up, I decided I wanted to take a hike. And I couldn't figure out if I wanted to go to a mountain or to go to, like water, like streams or something like that. Because there's all sorts of hiking trails in Pennsylvania. You can pick what you want. And I usually did, but for some reason this day I couldn't. And I was driving myself absolutely nuts in my head. So I'm like, just make up your mind, Charlie. Make up your mind. Finally, I got in the car and I went to the gas station to fill up with gas, and still hadn't figured out which hiking trail I was going to hit, mind you. So after I put the gas in my car, I got in the car and I got to thinking how covered bridges have been on my mind a lot lately, So I put a covered bridge in my GPS, and I went to that one. It was like a 13-minute drive from where I live, So I went to that, and it was while I was there that I went underneath that bridge. Is what I did. I went under there and I started writing, and it was it was in that drive, actually on the way there, I should say. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But on the way there, I was feeling, the writing come back to me, and I was feeling this inspiration, and I felt like there was something that had to do with these bridges. So what it ended up being basically was God kind of leading me towards that covered bridge. And then the idea hit me that I'm going to write from underneath every covered bridge in Pennsylvania. And that's going to be my next book. So, and the idea is, I've named it Visions from Underneath. And the idea is that because we are under God's hand, all the time, and our visions from underneath his hand should be of his choosing, I guess you could say. That would be one way to put it. But also, that we're safe under his hand. So the underneath is when I go under that bridge and I'm writing, I get more inspired because I'm in the outdoors and I know that he's there, and I know that, I'm safe underneath his hand. So that's how the title of this book came around. And so far I've visited 63 bridges so far in Pennsylvania out of the 209.
Wow.
So, but that's a journey, and it's an adventure. And it's not just writing with this one. It's more of an adventure. And it's a lot of fun.
Wow.
So yeah. But
that's exciting. And you can follow, people can follow you on Facebook. You have a page called Visions from Underneath the Journey, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, that's my group. I do have another page called Visions from Underneath, but yeah, they can follow me on that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great.
I think the group, you have to be a friend of mine, I think is how that works.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, the page is public, and that is Visions from Underneath.
Well, I've been following you, and it's great to see your posts and your journey. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I'll take all
Charlie,
the support I can get.
What's that?
I said I'll take all the support I can get.
Yes, sir, man. Yeah, brother. Well, thank you for sharing your story and for your journey, and you're blessed. And if you could just, say a prayer and take us out. Like, just say a prayer for us. There's a lot of people that watch. I was inspired. Like, this wasn't my plan. I was inspired to do this show so I could share people's testimonies and really just start talking about God. And if we start talking about God and we do it in social media or wherever we're at, I just love talking about him and the amazing things.
Yeah.
And so,
absolutely.
So if you just say a prayer for us and take us out, and
yes, absolutely. Let me take my hat off.
Yeah.
All right. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together. I thank you for bringing Darren into my life and for this opportunity to speak with him. I ask, Lord, that you will bless his ministry, bless this podcast as he tries to find others to come in and get on the ark, so to speak. Lord, I thank you for this time. I thank you for all the time that you give us, Lord, and help us to always know that we are under your hand and that we are protected by you, and guide us, Lord, guide us towards where you would like us to be in this life, and push the chaos aside and help us to be able to see you more clearly, Lord. I thank you and I praise you for this time that we've had together here this day. And I thank you for all that you do for us. In Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Charlie. God bless you.
Sure. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. And God bless you.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a blessed day.
And God bless everybody.